It's slow because the creek still runs. Look at that. Get out of her way. I don't know if you've noticed that. I don't know if you've noticed that. I'll stop.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 14th, 2023 Planning Board meeting. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. So I'd like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Want to review the beginning meeting announcements. The emergency exits are to your left and right. Restrooms are just out the door on the left. Please, if you haven't done so, please make sure you sign the attendance sheet at the back of the meeting room, even if you're a developer and are presenting an application. There are also business cards at the back table with some information on contacting the planning department, phone numbers and emails. On the back of the table also is a copy of any resolutions that we'll be reading tonight along with the agenda. Please silence your cell phones. And if you have any conversations that you need to have, please take them outside and close the doors so that you can't distract the applicants from their presentations and the board from deliberating. We have one set of meeting minutes, the 13th of December. Has everyone had a chance to read them? Any comments from either side of the table here?
I'm going to abstain, I wasn't there.
Okay, Ernie was absent. So I may take a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 13th, 2022.
I'll move.
Al moves.
Second.
Joe seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One abstention. We've received an additional correspondence from Dolores Fanton on 1086 Strong Road subdivision. Is that in a, here? Okay. So please take note of that. Boards and committee meeting updates. I see Dave's here. Anything from
Nothing to report tonight.
town
Joe?
board? Thank you, Dave. Any other boards here? Kim?
So your next meeting will be February 28th, starting with a public hearing for Engelbrecht Garage Addition at 7980 Main Street, Fishers. The applicant is requesting approval to construct a 1,900 square foot detached three-car garage with a second floor living space. And the second public hearing, which I'm very excited about, is for Ross Dress for Less at 20 Cobblestone Court Drive. Applicant is requesting approval to subdivide a 23,000 square foot retail space at Cobblestone Court, which is formerly the Dick's building or store. They are proposing a facade change and a new grade level loading dock, and then any carryovers from tonight.
Any questions for Kim? Thank you, Kim. We have 4 items on the agenda this evening. The first item up is a public hearing. It's the High Point Business Park Building 300 balcony. The applicant's requesting approval to construct a 925 square foot building addition on the eastern side of the existing 3-story structure to create a terrace area. Mr. Creedicos.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be back. I'm James Creedicos with BME Associates, Fred Rinaldi with Rainbow Associates LLC. As Joe just noted, we're in front of you tonight for a terrace addition to High Point Building 300 that we just recently constructed about 2 years ago. And they're doing some of the interior build-out spaces. We did receive comments from several of the town staff, which we provided written responses to yesterday. I think the only 2 items that I wanted to kind of note on there was a question about why we couldn't locate this further south on the building to avoid the conflict with the setback and the variance we obtained last week from the ZBA. It just has to do with the tenant that is in the first floor elevation of the building. Where that terrace is, it's effectively the southern limits of their space. So we really don't have the ability to shift that further south without, maybe creating some kind of, linear walkway or something. So to have them with their adjacent windows, this is kind of the most appropriate spot. The other thing that I wanted to provide a little clarification on is just the landscaping. There was some commentary from the landscape consultant as well as Labella, and that had to do with some differences between the renderings that we provided. I just wanted to clarify. So what we did when we put this together was a site plan modification. We really just put the building footprint on there, and then we ended up just deleting one tree that was in conflict with that space. You guys already have a letter of credit still in the amount for the landscaping out here. I think what we're looking to do is, there's about 20 trees that we had previously proposed in this corridor. We're just going to kind of leave it to the applicant to decide, the mix of deciduous evergreen to help kind of create the screening. Because I think they do have more of an intent to get some evergreens in there around the actual facade of the terrace as shown in the rendering. But obviously there's only about 8 trees shown here, so there would be some continuation through the corridor there as per the original approvals. So I just wanted to note in the ongoing conditions of the resolution you guys have prepared, it does indicate 17 autumn blaze. That's just the number that was reduced from 18 from the conflict. But as I noted, we did get our variance from the ZBA last Monday. So we're really here to just kind of answer any questions from you guys. The only thing I think that changed from when Link was in front of you guys about a month ago was the material of the terrace was a brick previously, and the applicant wants to go more of a big block stone. It actually will help kind of blend it in with the exposed concrete of that first level a little bit, and then obviously screened with the trees to kind of create a very natural look up there.
Thanks. I guess we'll start off on Ernie's end of the table. You got any questions, Ernie, for the applicant?
Is this at the request of the tenant?
Yes, and I can let Fred speak to that specifically.
Ernie, you might need to lean a little farther forward to your mic. It's hard to.
Ernie, I can read your lips at this point. So, good evening. So what happened with Building 300, which is a full story larger than the prior 2 buildings, so 150,000 square feet. First American is in floor 2, floor 3, and floor 4. The first floor has 2, potentially 3, but 2 tenants right now that'll occupy it. When you walk in the entry, which I would beg for you guys to do, it's quite beautiful, you'll see that the prime entry where this tenant will occupy broadcasts to the left or north, creating a incredibly efficient plan. We have a 3% load or loss factor in that building, which is really impressive. The comparison would be Woodcliff has about 14% load or loss factor. So that's space that they can't use for their business function that they pay rent on. So to enjoy that efficiency, we spend a lot of time. You've seen the process with Hanlon, our architects and tenant, and we try to make the most efficient use of space. Now there's an even greater pressure, not only on making the space future-proof, but arming it with every tool that will cause the highest level of quality of life for the people who will be working within the space. So the boundary of the space and the demand of the tenant for certain amenities to allow for them to be successful there drove the need for the terrace. Each building in building space offers a unique terrace amenity or outdoor amenity. It was our wish early on that First American might occupy the entirety of the building. The world has changed a little bit in the last few years, and this allows for us to strengthen the building by way of its co-tenancy, multiple tenants, and offer them the same type of amenities that all the other employees are enjoying there in the campus and the other 2 buildings as well.
But the picture shows a couple of fire pits there.
That was artistic liberty. Really what they want, if you heard terms around, people are going out of their way to design these biophilic elements. All that means is you take a little bit of the outside and bring it inside and make it easy to do both. Go in and out, go in and out, and it's so beautiful there. This looks at the conservation easement across High Point Drive. It's quite spectacular. So this is an opportunity for easy access to enjoy the outside. This is a very cool company that's moving a significant portion of their entity up from Pennsylvania. It has a very low median age. So the theme of Building 300 is a lot of young professionals in there. And this is a common amenity to service their quality of life when they're in the space. But right now, there's no plan for fire pits. And anything would be strictly subject to any and all code as it relates to the
You
same.
have to have the fire department take a look at it.
I
If you did that.
I can promise you that for far little excuse, the Victor Fire Department likes to visit the buildings.
Okay.
So, and we will be a very open book with that. But this is something that affords a really awesome movement. When we finish the renderings of the space, I'll send them to Kim, and you can see how you look through the space, and it really broadcasts out. This will be spectacular to the space, and at the grand opening, there'll be opportunities to tour it as well.
Okay. Thanks. That's all I have, Joe.
Okay, Scott?
I have no questions.
Okay, Al?
All set.
Joe?
I'm good. I'm curious if Wes is happy with their response to Labella's comments.
Labella did issue a letter dated February 8th, 2023, and BME did provide a response letter there, and we're satisfied with the responses, so we'll issue a letter to close the loop on our review.
Great, thanks, Wes. One quick question, Fred.
Yes, sir.
This is earth-filled, right? It's like these stone blocks are precast stone, I assume, with the texturing, and it's earth-filled all the way up. It's no basement or anything else below it, correct?
There'll be no extension of the
Yeah,
basement.
okay.
And there's, what's on the other side of that wall is functional garage space. So this will be earth-filled. These blocks will have they'll have a more ornate texture than you see here. And the one comment I was going to make to compliment James is that we'll use the Conservation Board species guide, and I would like to rhythm the plantings so they work with this and not just are arbitrarily installed on that. That is a highly visible part of this parcel and a highly visible part of that stretch of office campus, and it's really important that this bookends everything well. So there'll be that stone block will be a little more attractive, a little more fun to be up close to if you do enjoy the grounds there, but there'll be no imposition or basement space created by way of this.
Okay, great, thank you. This is a public hearing, so I'd like to open the floor for public comment, if there's anyone interested in addressing the board or the applicant. Seeing none, and I don't know, Susie, anybody online? No? Okay. So at this point, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move.
Al moves.
Second.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay. With that, unless there's any other elements from the board, I'll read a resolution for approval and go from there. So as a resolution, High Point Business Park Building 300 Balcony Addition, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 9 of them, including number 9, which is Zoning Board of Appeals granted an area variance on February 6, 2023 to allow a 12-foot front setback on Lot 4, High Point Business Park for construction of a terrace, whereas Article 211-24-4A states 30 feet is required. Now therefore be it resolved that the application of Rainrose Associates LLC, 205 St. Paul Street, Suite 200, Rochester, New York, site plan entitled High Point Business Park, Building 300 Balcony Addition, drawn by BME Associates, dated January 23rd, 2023, received by the Planning Board January 10th. Yeah, I was going to say, it's not dated after we received it, right? So it's January 10th dated and January 23rd received by the Planning Board, application 02SP 2023, and be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to the chairman's signature on the plan. Number 1 is standard. Number 2, that any exterior lighting be compliant to code and approved by the code enforcement officer. Number 3, the comments in a letter dated February 8th, 2023 from Labella Associates be addressed. Number 4, that the comments in a letter dated January 19th, 2023 from Zaretsky and Associates be addressed. And number 5, that the comments in a letter dated January 30th from the code enforcement officer be addressed. Ongoing conditions, number 1 is standard. Number 2, that the landscaping elements consisting of 17, the landscaping part?
There's 20 trees that are proposed in that corridor.
Oh, yes, thank you. So consisting of 20 autumn blaze on the landscaping plan intended to screen the building and buffer the dumpster enclosure from the existing roadway, be perpetually maintained as an effective screen between the balcony addition and the High Point Drive, and that if any of the aforementioned landscaping fails to provide an effective screen due to death or disease of any one or number of particular trees, shrubs, or bushes, the vegetation be replaced with the same or equivalent trees, shrubs, or bushes in a timely manner so as to provide the perpetual screening desired by the planning board. That work?
Could you just strike the autumn blaze, because they're not all going to be that species?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Les, you got that? Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Number 4 of the whereases, the application was deemed to be a Type 2 action pursuant to New York State Environmental Quality Review Act regulations, and classification as such concludes the seeker process. Back to ongoing conditions. Number 2, when we just corrected that. So we have consisting of 20 plantings, landscape elements, on the landscaping plan intended to screen the building. And at the foreman, we did that. Okay, so I finished reading that. Number 3, the building design shall be consistent with the architectural details as shown on the elevations entitled Morgan High Point Office Park Building 300, as prepared by Hanlon Associate Architects, and received by the Planning Department on January 10th, 2023. Would that be January 23rd, Lisa? Okay, because it had the drawing. The other one was 23rd. Okay, we'll fix it. And be it further resolved, the planning board secretary distribute the appropriate standard conditions with the planning board's approval letter. So there's a resolution in front of us. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll move it.
Scott moves.
Second?
Joe seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 5-0. How's that?
Thank you very much. I miss you guys. Come visit me up on the hill. We got some cool things opening up this, actually in the next 8 weeks, including Old Pueblo. So I'll be affixed firmly at the bar if you guys want to hang out.
Okay.
When's the grand opening up there, Fred?
For,
When this gets open?
This will be about a 5-6 month build out.
That's what I figured.
But we're so excited. It just weights the building. It's gonna be exciting.
The second item on the agenda is for Valvoline. The public hearing is still open. The applicant is requesting approval to demolish the existing building, formerly Denny's Restaurant, and build a 2,080 square foot Valvoline instant oil change. And this is at 7503 County Route 42. And the owner is 7503 Main Street LLC, X-Map 6127.110.
Hi, good evening.
Evening.
Todd Markovich with APD Engineering. Tonight we have Garland Watkins. He's with Valvoline. He's a project manager, as well as Sky Hansen with APD as well. Here for the continued discussion of the proposed Valvoline at Route 96 and Main Street Fishers, and entertain or request that the board entertain a site plan approval this evening. At the last planning board meeting, much of the discussion was regarding the building orientation, specifically the board's request to rotate the building 90 degrees for some potential concerns they had, including light spillage from the inside of the building, as well as car headlights, and as well as the interior cleanliness of the facility and the potential for the doors to be open and to basically, look not as cleanly as other properties. And so, to that effect, we had prepared a response letter dated January 18th, submitted to the board, and basically explained the reasons why our client would still wish to maintain the original position of the building, as shown on the site plan in front of you here. And we feel that the documentation provided within the letter has adequately addressed those individual concerns, and certainly willing to talk about any of those tonight if you'd like. In addition, Valvoline has also proposed to basically swap out the two lower glass panels of the front side garage bay doors. So instead of a clear glass, they would be willing to look at other options there, something such as a frosted glass or a spandrel glass. Final details to be coordinated with the architect for the building, as well as potentially town staff. Otherwise, really no major changes since the last time we were here. A couple minor things. We've worked with the different consultants, the town engineer, with respect to irrigation, and those comments have been satisfied. We had a couple adjustments to the sanitary connections, some ADA striping and sizing, things of that nature, but all those have basically been signed off to date, my understanding. So really, at this point in time, we're here requesting final site plan approval of the site layout as shown in front of you, and again, certainly willing to discuss any portions of that if you'd like.
Thank you. So I guess I'll open it back up to the board with the information they provided to date. Scott, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. I went through the building elevations, and I took a look at the site plan, and I think you do have the right orientation of the building. I think the building fits the site best as you have it laid out. However, I think the concern that we expressed last time was largely just the appearance of the bay doors, and you indicated that you were willing to consider frosted glass, and I think that's positive. I'm looking at your landscaping rendering and wondering if there couldn't be some more landscaping added to also assist in that regard. I think the concern is just the appearance of the building with respect to those bays. I don't think it's considered all that attractive. So if there's perhaps some additional landscaping you could put in there that's not deciduous, as I think I'm looking at here, because those leaves fall and then just a vacant tree, I think that might be something worth considering. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Scott. Al?
I pretty much echo Scott's comments, so I don't need to be redundant.
Okay. And Joe?
I agree. The comments in the latest letter outlining the reasons for maintaining the orientation made sense, so I support that as well.
Thank you. And Ernie? Questions, comments?
No, I wasn't here for the other discussions. I read the minutes, though, but I don't have any comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. So I was probably the more vocal of the group in terms of the building orientation. I had expected to see a site plan at least showing why you couldn't, or why it wasn't as suitable. I guess I'm disappointed with that, but at the same time, I can't have a strong argument, to moving it in the other direction. The board seems to be accepting of it, so I do appreciate being able to, I guess, mitigate the light spillage from inside the building with some frosted panels. On the interior examples that you had on the prototype layout pictures, you have glass all the way to the floor on the doors, I believe?
That's correct, yes.
So which would then be frosted versus not frosted? How far up and any,
So if everyone can see the exhibit in front of you here, basically, we'd be proposing that the two lower panels would be frosted, and the total height there would be 4 feet, which would be even with the sill. And again, our thought on that elevation would be that at 4 feet, we're providing screening, certainly for the headlights at that point, but at the same time, we're also providing, potential, visibility for, I don't know, say emergencies to happen, someone needs to look inside the building, someone needs to look outside the building, so, and also get some natural sunlight within the building as well.
okay? I guess that's really my biggest concern, other than Scott's comments about the landscaping.
What's your feeling on enhancing the landscaping beyond what you show here?
So I guess, let me throw up this other exhibit here, which is a little slightly different than the one you guys have in front of you. And this one kind of outlines all of the landscaping between the existing and the proposed that will be on the site. And as you can see, it's pretty heavily landscaped in general. I believe we are showing, I apologize, don't have the numbers memorized, but there's 3 existing conifers, 11 proposed, 15 existing deciduous, 12 proposed. So we're talking about a total of 41 trees within the proximity, or the acreage itself. The other thing I guess I would point out is,
You need to use a microphone, sorry.
that's okay.
I'm not going to get it on tape if you don't.
The other thing I would point out is at the main intersection itself, and which you can see here at this exhibit, we have, within the right-of-way, there's quite a few deciduous trees there as well. So, we understand the need for screening and beautification, but at the same time, I hope you can appreciate the need for the advertising. It's going to be pretty well screened already. This exhibit that you see here was the kind of the old rendering, which was slightly off from what was proposed for the landscaping. The lower one is a more representative of what the actual landscaping would be, and you can see that, again, it's got quite a few deciduous. We've also got some evergreens kind of in these areas. I would also point out that, kind of looking down that corridor, if you were to look at, say, Wendy's or, down that direction, there's not much screening at all in front of those buildings, and while I certainly appreciate that's a different style building than what we're talking about here with the service bays, I would ask the board to kind of reconsider and understand that we're doing quite a bit for the landscaping here, and there's already a lot of landscaping on this property in comparison to the surrounding ones. So we need some visibility. We don't have really, again, we don't really have a curb cut right there. We've got a curb cut that's further south on 96, so we need people to see the building to know it's there and to access it.
Could you put in low-growing shrubs, more of them? I understand that you want your building to be seen, and your signs are up high, actually, but and not maybe so much putting in tall coniferous trees, but something maybe lower growing. But when I look at that photograph, I think, as I mentioned before, I mean, that's a great photograph for June of the year, maybe July as well. But we've got 10 other months during which I don't think it's going to look like that exactly. And like right about now, when the leaves are all off. So I think if you get more plantings in there that are not losing their leaves, that you would be able to buffer it, and I still think people will be able to find you. That's my comment.
I guess if I can just respond to that as well. The grading of the site is such that the road of 96 actually sits higher than our property, kind of comes down a little bit. So having kind of some of those lower plantings adjacent to the parking lot, I don't think they're going to really add much to the screening element. I think you'd actually, again, I don't have the grading plan in front of us here, but, if you can envision the road up high and the parking lot down low, if we had some shrubbery, I don't know that it's going to be, your eyesight might be a little bit over it anyway. So, again, I could talk with our client, but I'm not so sure that, it's going to be extremely advantageous here. And there's a shot there.
So Wes brought up a street view.
I can take a look at the grading plan too, if you'd like, and just get some actual grades.
So this just kind of illustrates, I think, Mr. Harter's comment about, the leaves off in the wintertime or the fall. You do have a couple of conifers here in this area, but I was just trying to,
Yeah, that's representative of what you would see today, yeah.
How'd you do that? Isn't it normally summertime they get those pictures?
And I think
Special
that,
effects.
I think that's the area that we'd like to see some additional vegetation, and quite honestly, I think that's a very reasonable request if we're not going to insist on a rotated building.
So could you point out what are the new plantings versus what's existing on your plan?
Sure.
See how, at least help us understand how it's going to be filled in more?
We actually have that on a slide, and there's a pointer if that makes it easier.
That might be easier,
That might-
yeah, if we could do
it's really
that.
helpful for everyone out there.
Suzie, there's the landscaping plan.
Do you happen to have this exhibit? I don't know if you,
That one.
so yeah, I guess that's,
That's the one that Sky had sent.
yeah, we just kind of colored one up here, but I guess if everyone can maybe bring their attention over there. So, we've got the intersection here. We've got the kind of the town intro here with kind of the existing deciduous trees. So what's not colored in should be the existing trees. And again, I guess you can't see that far, but yeah, it looks like those would represent the existing trees, kind of in the circles that are not colored in. All those, and then again, along the street, we're looking at adding this planting here, these couple plantings over here, this one here. So, again, it's not like we're ignoring this. We've already got these three, which again are in the right of way. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're coming in and adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just in this general vicinity. So again, in the span, we're going to have approximately 10 different plantings.
What are you adding in the back of the building, if anything?
In the back over here?
Is it all the green colored one, or all new, or is that?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
if you
so-
could relocate a few of those up front, rather than having just, you know what I mean?
So, yeah, again, I certainly understand. I mean, I think if we're talking about lower shrubs, I think that's an easier, we can do something more like that. But again, we need to have some type of, again, with this, this much trees in front, we just want to have some visibility. Obviously, commercial property, it's all about location and visibility. And to be fair to our client, we need to make sure that that's something that we can provide here. And again, I would just say, if you go down the street to the south, if you pulled up Google, I think you'll find that it's a pretty barren landscape, towards the Taco Bell and Wendy's. So
I think the idea was to screen the garage doors, honestly. I mean, it doesn't have to be the full width of the building, but, if you've got a window to the corner pylon here from 96, and then another window towards there from cars approaching 96 on Main Street Fishers, you've got some visibility of the two signs that you have on the building. But if you were to do some screening more in front of the garage doors, just to fill in, I think that's what
So I guess
preferable.
if I could make a request, if the board would consider final site plan approval contingent upon maybe us working with the town engineer or perhaps the landscape architect to maybe come up with a way to adequately address the concerns. Again, I would ask, that we would look for maybe some lower lying type of plantings or perhaps strategically placed.
I think the strategically placed is the key. I think that's what I'm hearing, and honestly, what I think too, that if we can have it strategically placed and maybe have our town architect or engineer work with you guys to perhaps move a few of the plantings up front. We're not asking you to put more in, but if we can put them where they're more appropriate, I guess, the more valuable to the look of the town corridor. I mean, everything else along there, I mean, that's why you look at the different buildings, architectural renderings of the other buildings is, Wendy's is all brick, and, we made some modifications on some of the other facilities. I mean, look at the hotel and so all of that, we were pretty careful to push for, since it is an architectural overlay district, to push for as pleasing a entry to the town as we can get. So that was one of the motivations of turning the building, honestly. So if we're not going to do that, I think putting landscaping in front of the bays here, I don't have a problem leaving the corridor open to the corner of the building. Certainly you want to have some visibility, and we appreciate that. So I could see putting a condition in the resolution for having a final say on the landscaping layout.
Okay.
So,
And who would have final say? Would it then be through our engineering representative and the landscape consultant?
I would say the landscape consultant, if you guys are,
Yeah, I think Labella would be happy to defer to the landscape consultant on that. It's really kind of their expertise, so.
And making sure that the landscape consultant is aware of the conversation that we're having tonight.
Exactly.
I'm okay with that.
okay. We still have an open public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that has an interest in commenting to the developer or to the board? Seeing and hearing none. Susie? No. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move it.
Scott moves.
Second.
Joe seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. So with that, we do have a draft resolution that we have prepared. So if you're scribbling notes here quickly, you can help, you and Lisa can work together on that one and chime in when it's appropriate. But we'll move this application forward. The only thing I didn't ask about was the signage on the building. I assume it's just on two sides still, because there was a comment about still signage on the back of the building where it's not needed.
Joe, I can't hear you.
Sorry.
Better.
So, yeah, what you see in front of you is the current architectural elevation. And again, right now, we have it in the front, it's on the side, and if this is the signage you're referring to, these were all reduced. That was certainly one of the comments that was made. Are you referring to the third sign in the rear?
Yeah.
And I believe, and Sky, perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, is the new updated elevation, does that exclude that sign? Okay, so that one still has 3.
The one Sky sent me had the rear sign on it. So
Which would be consistent with this. So, I mean, I guess, would that be part of the planning board approval, or would that be something we would have to just go for a sign permit and they would have final authority?
We have to approve the signage on the building. So as it is now, it's not consistent with our current policy of, signage for that building and that location, which is why I brought it up. So either you'd have to get a variance from us for that particular sign, or remove one of the other ones, or, which I'm sure you don't want to do, or just remove it, and we could make a note to that, and the engineer's final sign-off, in mind, frankly, on the set of plans would have to show that having been removed.
So could we proceed tonight with, a resolution that would approve with 2 signs, and then perhaps come back to the town if we, for a variance, if we wanted to
If that's
chase
something that you
third?
want, right now, we're approving it for 2 signs, one on the side, one facing Main Street Fishers and one facing Route 96,
Right,
which I believe that's what you wanted.
correct. And then if we so choose to come back in front of the board, we can do that.
Yes,
I think that would be sufficient, yeah.
okay. Wes, do you know where that is?
it's number 6.
Okay. Yes, thank you. All right.
And then what about the elbowing?
2 and 3 above the bay. Oh, that. Those are just. Does anyone have a problem with the numbers, bay numbers over the bay doors? The way they've depicted them?
How big? How big would they be?
They are extremely small, and let me see if we have. Garland, would you know off the top of your head how big the numbers would be on the signage?
Are they illuminated?
Yeah, I'm not seeing, to be honest, I'm not seeing the height of those signs on here.
Ballpark a foot, 18 inches?
I think he was saying 10 inches,
Yeah.
is that right?
That's fine.
Okay, so those 3 signs would be showing the bay numbers, 1, 2, and 3. They're red with blue. Does it say Valvoline on it? I mean,
No, we would just have a V on it, or, kind of a colored
Yeah,
V, so to
okay.
speak.
all right,
So I'm putting up a rendering here. This is, I think, maybe part of their initial submission. I don't believe this is a current rendering, but I just
yeah.
brought it up
architecture.
because it shows the numbers above these bay doors. And is that what you're looking for approval on? Or I thought maybe you had talked at a previous meeting where you would forego maybe the Valvoline logo and maybe just have the numbers?
Yes, I think that's fine.
Okay. That's fine.
So we're just going with the numbers?
Looks like,
All right, okay.
all right. Anything else? Okay, so as I plow through this, chime in, please. These are what I need. So, resolution for Valvoline, 7503 County Route 42, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. And there are 18 of them. Okay, do I need to modify any of these or flag them out? I don't believe so. So, whereas the Town of Victor Town Code, Chapter 211-27-1F 2D allows for the reasonable reduction of parking spaces required in the overlay district and shall be permitted by the Town of Victor Planning Board. And whereas the Town of Victor Planning Board reviewed the unlisted action on February 14th, 2023, and identified no significant impacts, now therefore be it resolved that the project Valvoline Instant Oil Change will not have a significant impact on the environment and that a negative declaration be prepared. And be it further resolved that the application of APD Engineering and Architecture, PLLC, 615 Fishers Run, Victor, New York, site plan entitled Valvoline Instant Oil Change, drawn by APD Engineering and Architecture, dated September 6, 2022, received by the Planning Board September 8, 2022, last revised January 6, 2023, Planning Board Application 26 SB 2022, be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to the chairman's signature on the site plan. Number 1 is standard. Number 2, that the copy of the executed access easement agreement between 7503 County Road 42 property and Delta Sonic along the proposed internal road network for access out to New York State Route 96 be provided to the Town of Victor Planning and Building Department for their file. Number 3, that the comments in the letter dated December 21st, 2022 from LaBelle Associates be addressed. Number 4, that comments in the letter dated December 12th, 2022 from Stormwater Manager be addressed. Number 5, that any exterior lighting be compliant to code and approved by the code enforcement officer. And number 6, that a sign permit be obtained for 2 building signs. One on facing Route 96, the second facing Main Street Fishers. Ongoing conditions, that the site plan comply with the Town of Victor design and construction standards for land development, including Section 4. Number 2, 2-year maintenance bonds shall be provided by the developer to the town for all improvements to be offered to the town for dedication. Are there any dedicated improvements on this, Wes, do you know of?
I don't believe there's going to be any dedicated improvements.
Okay. I know there's tie-ins to sewer and water and stuff, but I don't think they're improvements. Would we strike that one? Or just leave it in?
We can remove that.
Okay, so number 2 is out. Number 3, that a pre-construction meeting be held prior to the start of construction. Number 4, the demolition permit is required for the removal of the existing building and septic system. Actually, septic system, or is that just the sewer connection? I don't believe there's a septic system.
No, there's no septic system there. There's a current sanitary sewer connection there, and then they're going to create a new connection.
Yeah,
Yeah, this demolition permit is required for the removal of the existing building and septic system. Yeah, so the septic system component can be crossed out.
okay. Number 5, the landscaping elements consisting of, it says 14 existing trees to be protected, be called out on the demolition plan, and that tree protection methods should be installed prior to commencement of demolition. I suspect that the town code enforcement will be looking at pretty carefully. The landscaping plan intended to screen the new building and parking area from the adjacent roadway be perpetually maintained as an effective screen between the facility and New York State Route 96, and that if any of the aforementioned landscaping fails to provide as an effective screen due to death or disease of any one or a number of particular trees, shrubs, or bushes, vegetation be replaced with the same or equivalent trees, shrubs, or bushes in a timely manner so as to provide perpetual screening desired by the planning board. We need to say something about landscaping on the prior to approval, just to have the landscape architect review and approve it prior to
Yeah, so I've got a paragraph here that we can add to when
up here.
here.
Okay,
Right, but do you want to finish
yeah, okay.
those first?
We have an amendment in a minute here. Number 6, submission of an architectural elevation which reflects architectural decisions made at December 13th, 2022 Planning Board meeting as more fully specified in the December 13th, 2022 Planning Board meeting minutes entitled Valvoline Incidental Change, drawn by Greenberg Farrow, dated August 19th, 2022, received by Planning Board December 5th, 2022. I would say we should also have it updated per discussions regarding glass treatments on the doors. This says ongoing conditions. I guess I would have thought that would have been in a previous condition set too.
Yeah, number 6, I think you can move up to,
Prior to chairman's signature.
prior to
We would
chairman's
want the
signature.
updated, and just make sure they have the signage and the glass treatment included in those updated elevations. So that number 6 will go to conditions to be addressed prior to chairman's signature. Number 7, submission of a sign elevation packet, which reflects decisions made on, I guess I would say, this meeting. So February 14th, 2023, Planning Board meeting. And that also should be, I would think, prior to signature.
Yeah, that would be fine too. That makes sense.
Okay. So I'll have to update discussion on signage. Number 8, hours of operation shall be limited to Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. An area variance will be required by the Zoning Board of Appeals should the applicant wish to conduct business outside of these hours. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board Secretary distribute the appropriate standard conditions with the Planning Board's approval letter. And I know, Wes, you have the one,
Yeah, so one question for the planning board. Were you looking for evergreen shrubs?
I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bruce,
I
or
would say we
Scott?
want something that has year-round ability to provide some type of buffer, yeah,
Okay.
my opinion.
So I've got in here additional condition prior to signature that evergreen shrubs be depicted on the landscape plan along the Route 96 frontage to serve as a screen to the garage bay doors, and the quantity and placement be to the satisfaction of the town's landscape consultant after said consultant has reviewed the record from the February 14th, 2023 Planning Board meeting.
Understanding our goals and objectives and using him for this particular purpose.
All right, so with that, amendments, et cetera, I think we have a resolution ready for vote. Do I hear a motion for
I'll move
approval?
it.
Scott moves.
Second?
Al seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We still have a public hearing open for 1086 Strong Road subdivision. This evening, we are at a point in the process where we're going to begin environmental review of the application. And maybe, Wes, if you can sort of bring us up to speed again on where we are in that process, and just to remind
Yeah, so
those present.
where we are in this process, we're at the preliminary subdivision stage. We've received numerous items of public correspondence, which the planning board members have reviewed thoroughly. And as part of the preliminary subdivision review, this is where the planning board looks at the potential environmental impacts of a project and goes through the seeker process. That's what we're going to begin tonight. And as you can see up here on this, we have this chart again that Susie brought up for us. And hard copies of this are available at the planning and building offices if anybody is interested. But sketch plan, again, sketch plan is way over here on the left. Preliminary subdivision entails all of this here. And we're in the process of reviewing seeker. And a decision on the preliminary subdivision can only be made after seeker has concluded. And the conclusion of seeker would not happen until either the planning board issues a negative declaration indicating that there's no potential for a significant adverse environmental impact, or until a finding statement has been adopted, should the planning board choose to issue a POSDEC on the project. And then they can make a decision on the preliminary subdivision. So the planning board does not have the opportunity to, legally, they don't really have the opportunity to reject a subdivision proposal based on, before they've taken a hard look at the environmental factors under seeker, right? They've got to consider the proposal. The developer in the application needs to be given, due process, and it's only at that point, after they've reviewed seeker, can a planning board make a decision as to whether to approve or deny a project. With that,
Okay.
the public hearing is still open at this point.
So with that, we have had multiple meetings over the last, year and a half, probably, to review, accept, receive comments from the public, comments from the developer, deliberate amongst ourselves in terms of what we're hearing from the public towards the application, so that we can ferret out all of the important issues to the community for this application. So what we need to do is move ahead with the process, as Wes said. This would be the last public hearing meeting, so that we can then begin deliberation. So what I'd like to do is open up the floor for any other public comment that you may have, understanding that we've received multiple correspondence from many of the residents. If there's anything else you'd like to add to that, I certainly don't want to close the floor until we've had a chance to hear that. So if there's anyone here that has a comment, and I'm not going to close off the acceptance of public comments, but I am going to say that the closing of a public hearing does still afford you the opportunity to submit additional letters or questions to the board that we can also accept and deliberate on. But in the interest of keeping, being fair to everyone on the board and the applicant, we need to close off public comment and allow the process to move forward for our environmental review, which will take into account the comments and concerns from the public, as well as the things that we hear from our consultants that are assisting us with evaluating the environmental impacts of this project. So is there anyone here that's interested in making additional comment to the board before I offer an opportunity to close the public hearing? Appreciate you all coming still, and I certainly don't want to close off your opportunity to bring anything else forward that you may have. So,
good evening, I'm Maura Steed, live on Strong Road. One of the questions regarding the process and where things
sorry,
are
could
being...
you just
I
pull the
can't hear
mic
you.
towards you a little
Oh,
bit?
sure.
Yeah, that's good.
Where the conservation or just specific issues are being discussed about this. Is there any way that we can know what is going on in that process, where we might have questions that we would like to ask regarding it? Because I do have questions where there are perk tests or the drainage tests of how fast the water is going to go. And I'm thinking, does anybody test the water after it's gone through? And if there are contaminants and pollutants in the water of septic or wherever, does it get filtered out in the ground? And we know that there are things that don't get filtered out. And I think I just have some questions about, what the testing involves and how it is, kind of assessed and looked at. And as I say, I just don't know if that's something that we have, that we can have any information about, or if that is not in the public's domain.
So I'm going to defer to Wes in a minute here, but we will be very open about how we review all of the different elements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act assessment forms that we go through to determine whether or not there's major or minor impacts on each one of these, 18, Wes?
18.
18 elements.
Okay.
So, and Wes, if you want to expand on that or answer, see if she got
Yeah,
it.
so with regard to water quality, and specifically, it sounds like you're concerned about septic systems and the potential for
Well,
effluent to impact.
Not just septic, but I think even tearing up the drumlin and how that affects the surface water and everything that runs off of it. I mean, obviously, the permit that you can't have poured foundation.
So your erosion control is something you're also concerned with?
Yes, right,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the water, because the more we build around us, the water is definitely going to be flowing differently. And I know north on Strong Road in the last couple of years, there's been water flooding over the road that has never happened before, but there's been a lot of new building.
Yeah.
So I think it is definitely a concern.
Yep, so those are the types of things that we're going to touch on in the environmental review, right? And so there, you may have additional questions as the planning board is deliberating on these issues. And I would maybe suggest that you reach out to the town staff at some point if your questions aren't being answered by the discussion that's happening here amongst board members.
Okay.
Right? So as far as the septic systems go and the water supply, the well water, that's also going to be reviewed by the New York State Department of Health.
Good.
Right? This is a realty subdivision, and it requires Department of Health approval. So there's going to be a review by them as well.
Okay. Another question, and am I understanding correctly that the subdivision is going to move forward as it has been designed with the number of houses that have been put there with, the requests that we've all made to have some of that changed?
There's no guarantee that the subdivision is going to move forward in the way it's been presented.
Okay.
That's how we have to do our evaluation, however, because that's what the applicant has proposed.
I understand, okay.
So in our deliberations, as Wes was alluding, all of the things that people have brought up will be discussed in terms of each of these environmental quality review elements. And so you will hear that deliberation. And as Wes said, if you don't hear something, or you have a question, or something sparks it, please pass a note on to town staff, and we will get it and pass it on to the appropriate, whether it's our engineer or balance of the board, so.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you, yes, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Questions? Well, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this phase, and then we can move on with the environmental assessment.
I'll move.
Al moves.
I'll second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing's closed, 5-0. So, Wes, do you want to take it
Yeah,
over with
before I get started, Doug, I don't know if is there anything else that you want to chat with the board on before we start in with part 2 of the EAF?
I could chat about a couple of things, but just close the public hearing.
Well, you're the applicant, so you still have the opportunity, right? So
I don't think so, but I could recap the latest things if that would be helpful. As you recall, the town board did not approve the water district, so we switched to a well water supply, and that required, per health department comments, or requirements rather, to do 2 test wells. Those test wells have been done and completed, and both the flow requirements and the quality requirements have been met with those 2 test wells. The one other question that keeps coming up is markers for the conservation easements, and I understand there's a whole bunch of them, and part of that was because we're doing kind of an unusual thing, where we're putting some front landscaping in conservation easements with the understanding that that was part of the, kind of the buffering system that the board and neighbors seem to want. If you don't want that, I'd love to take them out and move it somewhere else. But then, if you do want it, it does create a lot of little tiny conservation easements all in the front, because you have to go between the driveway. Phone's talking to me.
Butt call.
And then the other thing with regard to those is, what are you going to use for a marker? My thought is we'll just plant a little pine tree, because they're mainly deciduous trees that we're proposing. So if we just put pine trees in at the corners, it would be a semi-permanent visual situation. But it's up to you.
I suspect the tweaking of all of this will happen during our review of
I'm sorry,
preliminary.
Joe.
I suspect that any adjustments we make to the approach of different things will happen during that's not going to affect environmental review one way or another, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. Maybe the final thing I brought up, I listened to some of the concerns about water over the road here. I'm not quite sure. I don't think it would affect these, it wouldn't affect these properties over here, but I had put in and requested a waiver for using dry wells for the downspouts. Again, this may not be real relevant, but my thought was, for these 3 houses, we would go ahead and put downspout dry wells in, since that's the area that drains to the north. That'd be lots 1, 2, and 3. I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, I just didn't know if you wanted to hear some kind of a recap of what had happened most frequently. I did get a response. We submitted the SWIP. The fire department kind of unusually asked for a calculation of the fire flow using pumpers and hoses. They were obviously pretty disappointed that we're not extending the water main. So we're putting 20, if there's a fire down here, we have to put 2,600 feet of hose in, the way they want to fight the fight. We did provide those calculations, and I did make a few minor modifications, Wes, on the SWIP and in the drainage report that I think I missed from before. So I think you have everything you need now. I know I have a drainage district to do and easements to provide and all that kind of stuff, but we kind of need to get to a preliminary plan stage before we do those, in case there's any changes in the plans. So hopefully, unless there's some other questions from you folks, we've got the berms and the trees, so you're really not seeing much of anything except for these 3 houses that are uphill until those trees in the front get more mature from Taylor Road. So, thank you.
Okay, I suspect if we have questions, you'll hear about it. Thanks, Doug.
Wes, before we get started, for the benefit of the people that are here, we have to determine if there's no or small impact or moderate to large impact. Can you talk about the significance of one or the other, especially if there's a large impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So within seeker, there are certain parameters here or elements that the planning board will review and will identify whether the project is going to cause or has the potential to cause a small impact or maybe no impact at all. And therefore, it's really not seen as a concern in terms of the project having an adverse impact on the environment. So there's also a category or a column where the planning board has the opportunity to check off that an impact is moderate or large, or moderate to large. And that doesn't necessarily indicate that, yes, there is a significant adverse impact, but that there is the potential for there to be a significant impact. And then the planning board has to decide whether or not it is, how important that impact is and the scale of it. And just because you have a moderate to large impact doesn't necessarily mean that the planning board is going to jump to a pause deck, right? What's the importance of the impact? What's the duration? What's the potential for irreversibility? And how can the project be modified to minimize or avoid that moderate to large impact? So there's a bit of assessment that goes on in this regard. Does that kind of cover what you were looking for?
It does, and again, for each of these categories, the state's provided guidance on how we make a determination about that particular. It clarifies what the one-liner tells us, and helps guide us towards small, moderate to large, whatever.
Yes. So what we have here in front of us, planning board, is a draft. This is a draft part 2 of the EAF. This is something that Labella has taken an opportunity to put together for you to consider, right? This is not Labella's document, as you know. This is really something that we're trying to help you shape as a board and make a determination on these items. So I want to just reiterate that this is an opportunity for dialogue amongst planning board members. And there may be questions that we have that we can ask the applicant, right? If we need to get some information from the applicant, we can do that. But there is no more opportunity for the public to weigh in during the public meeting here as the public hearing is closed. So with that, I'll get going on the first question, the impact on land. Actually, just a brief project description. The proposed 1086 Strong Road subdivision is a 34 plus or minus acre parcel clustered subdivision within the town's residential 2 zoning district and in the residential A overlay district, which permits a maximum density of 0.33 units per acre. The proposal would create 11 lots for single-family residences and include at least 50% of the gross area as designated open space.
Create 11 new lots, or is it?
So there'd be a creation of 11 lots, but 10 of the only 10 of the lots would have new residences.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
So impact on land, the proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site. Definitely yes. The answer to that is yes. I just want to note a few things here. Even though I've got all these subcategories marked off as no or small impact, we did some research. We found that per the National Resource Conservation Service web soil survey, the depth to water table is greater than 200 centimeters or greater than 6.5 feet. And also per the NRCS web soil survey, the depth to bedrock is greater than 6.5 feet across the entire project parcel. Construction may occur for a period that exceeds 1 year due to the proposed number of houses. However, the duration of construction for any single residence is anticipated to be less than 1 year. The project would involve mass grading of a portion of the project site that would involve a total disturbance area of approximately 10.5 acres per Part 1 of the Environmental Assessment Form, question D1B, that the applicant provided. The project may result in an increase in erosion due to disturbance of the land, or disturbance to the land, including the removal of approximately 0.6 of an acre of forested land. However, the project includes a stormwater pollution prevention plan, erosion control measures as depicted on the construction erosion control plan, and revegetation of disturbed areas. These measures will minimize or avoid the potential for significant adverse environmental impacts associated with increased erosion. The project site is not identified in the Town of Victor's Natural Resource Inventory co-occurrence inventory. The co-occurrence inventory identifies areas in which multiple natural resources exist in co-occurrence with one another, and the co-occurrences are greater than 10 acres in size. These resources include wetlands, woods, steep slopes, streams, and floodplains. So for A and B, the proposed action may involve construction on land where depth to water table is less than 3 feet. There's no or small impact there. The same thing with C, I guess. The proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of the existing ground surface.
Wes, you stated 200 centimeters to groundwater or more. Is that what I heard?
Correct. Yeah, 6.5 feet.
All right, so does that impact at all the ability to build a basement, for instance, below the water table, if that's the case? Or do we have to know that where the water table is before you elevate the building that you're going to put there? Or technicality, but, you know.
Yeah, let me see if I understand your question correctly. So is your question on whether or not these home sites would accommodate a basement due to the
level of the water table.
water table?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a generic or a sort of a general comment on where the average water surface is,
Yeah.
6 feet or less or more, or is it, how to put this? If it's if it's more than 3 feet, you can build a basement, you're just gonna be pumping water all the time. I
Yeah.
guess, that's my concern.
Or gravity drains.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the applicant would like to chime in here on that. He might be able to.
Just to help you out with that item, we did do, of course, 8-foot deep test holes on every lot because of the septic systems, found no groundwater in those. And then when we drilled the test wells, the shallowest was 61 feet. So in essence, I'm thinking that the groundwater, and that was in a low area. So in essence, I'm thinking the aquifer is going to be below that 61 feet. In fact, if you look at some of the neighboring wells where they actually went down to bedrock, it was in the neighborhood of 130 feet. So I'm not seeing, based on the test pits we did, the wells that were drilled, there really is no instance of groundwater within the basement regime.
I guess, thanks, Doug. I guess I was making sure that whatever that groundwater level is,
Yeah,
that doesn't impact your ability to build a basement or the fact,
right. And like I said, based on all those things, there really isn't any issue with
Okay.
groundwater at all.
Right, I mean, I wouldn't want my basement under groundwater level either, but,
Yeah, no, the true groundwater is about 160 feet deep, but there is a couple of veins of perched groundwater. At least based on the test wells we did, one was around 60-ish feet, and the other one is around 80 feet, I believe.
okay, so well,
But they're
Out of the
well
impact area.
below basement levels.
okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Wes.
Yep. The proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater. There are areas on the site where there are some slopes that are 15% or greater. However, we've indicated here that there is no or small impact. So some of the steep slope areas are, I don't want to, 15% isn't necessarily considered a steep slope, but the 15% kind of threshold, there are some areas where these home sites are located. More of them are located in the conservation easement area, which is really, an area that the applicant is looking to protect there. The proposed action may involve the excavation or removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. I've got no or small impact. The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases. I've indicated no or small impact. F, the proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal. I've indicated no or small impact. And the proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area, and I've got no impact there. Impact on geologic features. Proposed action may result in the modification or destruction of or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site. For example, cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, caves. So there's a little bit of information here I wanted to share. Per the New York State Unique Geologic Landforms Project, it's a joint venture between the New York State DEC and the New York State Museum Office of the State Geologist. The topography of the site is not identified as a unique or unusual landformation such as cliffs, dunes, waterfalls, erratic rocks, gorges, glacial features, or caves. The only two portions of the town recognized in this instance are the Drumlin Field at Gillis Hill, located on the east side of the town, and the Kettle Hole Lakes at Fishers Road and Benson Road, located on the northwestern edge of town. However, the project site is characterized by rolling topography that is locally important to the character of the neighborhood and the town of Victor. The pasture landscape provides scenic value to the existing community. Although the project site is privately owned, the site is readily visible from public vantage points, such as the public right-of-way. The proposed project would alter the rolling landscape, but not to a degree that would eliminate the existing character. The mass grading of the site would alter, but continue to provide varied topography on the site. The site will be physically altered, and new structures would affect the character of the setting. So we don't have, in paragraph A, identify the specific landforms and attached. We don't really have anything recognized other than locally. And the proposed action may affect or is adjacent to geologic features listed as a registered national natural landmark. Both of those I've indicated as no or small impact. And then under C, other impacts, locally recognized varied topography, I've also indicated no or small impact.
And, I appreciate the narrative you provided about how that locally recognized topography.
Okay.
But if we're putting 7 houses there and we're going to have to build pads for the houses, we're going to have to grade for that. And certainly that rise up towards Taylor Road is part of the drumlin, I think, as it exists. Would we be moving more towards moderate then, given that we're flattening a significant portion of that to put pads for the houses?
Well, I think if we, that's a good question. I think we look at the context of the site in totality. While there is a portion of each of those parcels that would maybe be leveled off for the purpose of creating a house pad, the grading plan illustrates, kind of modification of contours, and maybe I could bring that up here. It might be worth taking a look at. Submission. Okay. Susie, could you switch to my screen? Thanks. So as you can see, it can be somewhat difficult to read. If you look at the dashed lines that are a little more faint in gray, those are the existing contours. And then the proposed contours are a little more bold. And so you can see that while portions of this project parcel would be leveled off maybe for these potential house pads, right? There's still that undulating topography here, I guess in my assessment, right? But this is, I want to stress that this is really your document as a board. So, even though I had indicated no or small impact, if you feel that it's maybe more moderate, it's fine to check that off, and maybe we provide a little more reasoned elaboration. Where's the other grading plan? Yeah. There we go. Yeah, and then these are along Strong Road.
So are we looking at 10 or 15% of the 33 acres being modified, if you will?
So
That's just a,
yeah,
rough estimate.
I think if I recall correctly, it was about 10 and a half acres of total disturbance out of the 34
Okay.
acres.
That's a third.
Yeah.
So I think moderate's probably more
Okay.
appropriate.
All right.
I don't know if the rest of the board agrees. It just seems like we are changing it.
I think you are changing it, you are disturbing it temporarily, but it becomes revegetated. As to whether you're changing the natural topography to something completely different, I think where the houses are located, that would be true, but I think any good grading plan is going to take advantage of the natural topography and want to blend with it to keep the aesthetics. The aesthetics are important to the new homes as well as to those viewing the site as well.
Yeah, if you have a,
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, can you go to the other grading plan just because it's more illustrative? That a lot of the grading, I don't have much here to point to, but you can go to the other plan. West, yeah. So this is, yeah, correct, we have to create a flat pad here. This earth here goes over to these mounds. And one thing that, we found important listening to everyone was that these mounds, quite frankly, they could have been 2-to-1 slopes and done half the grading. But that wouldn't have been in the character of the neighborhood. So the mounds we're creating are 3-to-1, 4-to-1 slopes. And the reason I did that was because that's more in character of the natural drumlins that exist on the property. So all I'm trying to say is here, even though this looks like a lot of grading, that was the purpose. It was so that I wasn't going adverse to the existing topography, I was kind of go with it. So when you look at the site from the road, for example, these are fairly moderate slopes coming up, as opposed to berms, which you might think of as, going up steep, flattening off. It's not the case. These are more like little rolling mounds. So that was actually a mitigation for that consideration with regard to grading. To have to create some flat pads, well, let's use that earth to do something that is going to help block the view, because that seemed to be what the neighbors wanted, but let's not block it with something that is adverse or contrary to the existing rolling topography of the land. So that's why these contours are fairly far apart for the berms that we're creating along Strong Road,
so when we were
if that helps.
hearing comments from the public over the last year or so, one of the comments I heard was, it's going to be, drastic impact to the land, like Shire, I think it is it Shire Lane? It's up, those, in my mind, that subdivision was an extreme example of how much you could regrade a site. I mean, they had retaining walls that failed and very steep slopes and all kinds of things just to cut in a road that went from went from Strong to Willis Hill.
Yeah,
And
I'm
this is
familiar
not,
with it,
in
Joe,
my
but-
mind,
But I
anywhere
did
anything
go
like
to,
that.
a lot of extent to try and make the mounds moderately sloped as opposed to steeply sloped, including what's behind the houses.
That's what, 3-on-1 or something, back behind the house?
Behind the houses were 3 to 1, so I don't want to push too far into the hill. But then when I created these mounds in the front, I was more like 4 to 1,
Okay.
just as, more of a rolling topography as opposed to, berms, you can see it 2 to 1, it looks very steep. But that is not the case here. These are, more conforming with the character of the neighborhood, the character of the land, I should say.
Yeah.
So Wes, maybe the way to address this is to build on Joe's point, right? We can mark it as, potential of moderate to large impact. And then there's the mitigation as described by the applicant of how that will be mitigated.
That works for me.
Okay. Thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
Are we going with moderate to large then?
On that one item, I think we are with the opportunity for the...
Paragraph C, yeah, moderate to large.
Looking at-
Yep,
That's what it's going to be?
Yes.
moderate to large, yep. Okay, number 3, impacts to surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies, example, streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes. We've indicated yes. And no new water bodies would be created as a result of the proposed project. So paragraph A, no or small impact may occur. The proposed action may result in an increase or decrease of over 10% or more than a 10-acre increase or decrease in the surface area of any water body. We've indicated no or small impact. The proposed action may involve dredging more than 100 cubic yards of material from a wetland or water body. No or small impact. D, the proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland in the bed or banks of any other water body. We've indicated no or small impact. So while no identified wetlands per DEC mapper and NWRI mapper, there is a DEC class stream that goes through the project or goes through the property. However, that stream is entirely within a proposed conservation easement, and no construction or disturbance to the bed or banks of any of that stream will be occurring. E, the proposed action may create turbidity in a water body either from upland erosion, runoff, or by disturbing bottom sediments. We've indicated no or small impact in that regard. F, the proposed action may include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water from surface water, no or small impact. The proposed action may include construction of one or more outfalls for discharge of wastewater to a surface water. There's going to be no impact in that regard. H, the proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of a receiving water body. Indicated no or small impact. I, the proposed action may affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of the proposed action. I've indicated no or small impact. J, the proposed action may involve the application of pesticides or herbicides in and around any water body. I've indicated no or small impact. And K, the proposed action may require the construction of new or expansion of existing wastewater treatment facilities. We've got no impact in that regard. Also, just as a reminder, and Joe, you talked about this, we can, if we need to visit the EAF or the seeker workbook online, the online workbook, we can do that for any of these paragraphs if we need some assistance. So, impact on groundwater. Number 4. Okay. The proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer. So we've indicated yes here. And there's some blanks here that are incomplete, and I wanted to ask the applicant a question. and Labella is also, we've got a hydrogeologist looking at the well reports that you provided for lots 7 and 11, right? The two that
Right.
were required for DOH. By chance, have you run any of that by the Department of Health yet? And have they had any comments?
No, we haven't. We have to get a preliminary approval before they'll
Okay,
entertain. But
got it.
But as far as impacting the groundwater, I think I just mentioned a little while ago, we're looking at maybe perched levels that might be 60 to 90 feet and 140 odd feet to the real groundwater. And for example, when you design the septic system, you have to be at least 2 feet below the trenches. So we're as far as the depth of filtration, if you want to think about it that way, is I don't want to give exact numbers because I could be wrong, but let's say at least 40 feet of filtering. And then secondly, the other thing you worry about is rapid infiltration. Rapid perk tests, usually less than 5 minutes or less than a minute, really. And we didn't have any of that. It's really almost an ideal situation for septic systems where you have really good perk rates, but not so good that you'd be rapidly transmitting the fluid to a potential groundwater level, even though that ground level is really deep. So, in my opinion, there really isn't any impact from the septic systems on the groundwater that would be relative, or of any significant nature here. And the conditions are not unlike what they are across the road. In fact, across the road, my understanding is there's a well over there that's as little as 30 or 40 feet deep, and the septic systems would be much closer to that grade. But it's the same type of strata, I would presume. It's a nice soil for septic systems. It does not tube fast. It's just right. It'll do. Of course, you have your septic tank that does the cleanup, if you want to call it that, a little bit, and then the leach field just takes the effluent and lets it go into the ground. So we're not, like I said, I think the conditions are good for not impacting groundwater.
Yeah.
Based on everything I've seen, including the well tests that gave me a much deeper profile.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there, and just for the planning boards, I'm kind of reiterating what you mentioned earlier on, but the depth to the groundwater for each of those sample wells was 34 feet, right? That's what I'm seeing in the report. 34 feet to the depth of groundwater, and then the recovery rate after the drawdown of the well, right? The recovery rate seems to be pretty reasonable too. At about 34, at 6 minutes, you're back to the 34 foot depth for the water table.
I didn't recall anything being within 34 feet, but maybe what I was thinking of was the depth of the well.
The depth of the wells themselves,
Okay.
one was 90 feet,
Right.
and the other one was 61 feet deep.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So thank you, Joe. I stand corrected on that. So it is, so that perched groundwater level may be at that 30 or 40 feet level.
Yeah.
And those happen to be in two of the lower areas of the site. So
Yep.
presumably, for example, these are higher, these are about the same, and these are about the same as those well top elevations.
Yep.
So you'd be looking at similar situations.
Yeah, okay. So, thanks, Doug.
Yeah.
So paragraph A.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So we've talked about recovery rates being 6 minutes for one well.
Right.
How do we quantify the ability of or the amount of water available in the aquifer for 11 homes?
Yes.
What would be the net impact of everybody getting up in the morning and going to work? How long does it take before that goes to an unacceptable recovery rate?
Yeah. So I'm hoping to get more detail from our hydrogeologist that's looking at these results. And I was hoping that maybe Department of Health had the opportunity to take a preliminary look at these. And I understand that maybe you can't get that until after your preliminary approval. But
Yeah, but to expand on it a little bit, Joe, these wells are all, I don't want to give you an exact number, but let's say 150 feet apart. So there's a drawdown curve at each well, but I don't see the drawdown curve of this well affecting the drawdown curve of that well. It's just, it's a hydrogeologic situation where, as you pull water up, it's going to take water in to go up from kind of the local area. So, with the separation between the wells, they shouldn't be drawing down another well. And I was cognizant of that. And I discussed it with the well driller when I laid out the wells. So I don't see that as being an issue myself.
So I think we'll also have the opportunity to share a graphic that helps illustrate what Doug is trying to convey here with regard to.
Okay, so are we going to put this on hold until we have the data?
Yeah, I think that would be the best choice here. I know the first one for paragraph A indicated no or small impact. The proposed action may require new water supply wells or create additional demand on supplies from existing water supply wells.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, this is way over my head, not to
Yes.
do an underwater joke, but I'm used to tracking contaminants, moving with groundwater, so I have no concept of what else is down there.
Yep. So, and then you did provide an analysis in terms of providing the minimum separation requirements between wells and your septic systems.
Yes.
So that was appreciated. So this is in a draft form, we'd like to take a little more time and be sure we've got that characterized
Thank you.
correctly for you. Number 5, impact on flooding. The proposed action may result in development on lands subject to flooding. The answer to that is no. Impacts on air. The proposed action may include a state-regulated air emission source. We've indicated no in that regard. Impacts on plants and animals. The proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna. So yes, there is the possibility that that would occur. A, the proposed action may cause a reduction in the population or loss of individuals of any threatened or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government that use the site or are found on, over, or near the site. We've indicated no or small impact. The research that we've done didn't indicate that there were any threatened or endangered species on this site. The proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government. We've indicated no or small impact for the same reason. C, the proposed action may cause reduction in the population or loss of individuals of any species of special concern or conservation need as listed by New York State or the federal government that use the site or are found on, over, or near the site. We've indicated no or small impact. And D, the proposed action may result in the reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any species of special concern and conservation need as listed by New York State or the federal government. No or small impact in that regard.
Wes, is this per your check on the web, the website that
Correct.
identifies these features?
That's correct. E, the proposed action may diminish the capacity of a registered national natural landmark to support the biological community it was established to protect. No or small impact. F, the proposed action may result in the removal of or ground disturbance in any portion of a designated significant natural community. This site is not identified as a significant natural community, so no or small impact. G, the proposed action may substantially interfere with nesting, breeding, foraging, or overwintering habitat for the predominant species that occupy or use the project site. Indicated no or small impact. H, the proposed action requires the conversion of 10 or more acres of forest, grassland, or any other regionally or locally important habitat. We've indicated no or small impact. And I, the proposed action for commercial and industrial recreational projects only involves use of herbicides or pesticides. So even though it's for commercial, industrial, or recreational, we've indicated no or small impact. Okay. Number 8, impact on agricultural resources. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources. We've indicated yes. And A, the proposed action may impact soil classified within soil groups 1 through 4 of the New York State Land Classification System. And there are approximately 21 acres, about 21 acres of the 34-acre site that have soils identified as prime soils or soils of statewide importance. So the project would convert agricultural land to a residential use, including future lawn and meadow. It is unlikely that the land would be used for agriculture in the future, as the project includes creating 11 parcels, 10 of which would be built upon, that will likely be owned by different property owners. So the reason why I checked moderate to large impact with regard to A is that it's the irreversibility. It's likely that the proposed use and the change to the land is going to be irreversible. So it's kind of a loss of those productive or prime soils for agriculture. So I've indicated moderate there. B, the proposed action may sever, cross, or otherwise limit access to agricultural land. So this project isn't going to create a barrier to access agricultural land. I think the conversion of the prime soils to, something other than agricultural use covers the point. So C, the proposed action may result in excavation or compaction of the soil profile of active agricultural land. I've indicated no or small impact. And the proposed action may irreversibly convert agricultural land to non-agricultural uses, either more than 2.5 acres if located in an agricultural district, or more than 10 acres if not within an ag district. So this is another one where I've indicated moderate to large impact may occur. E, the proposed action may disrupt or prevent installation of an agricultural land management system, no or small impact. The proposed action may result directly or indirectly in increased development potential or pressure on farmland. No or small impact in that regard. The proposed project is not consistent with the adopted municipal farmland protection plan. I've indicated no or small impact.
Does the town have a municipal farmland protection plan?
It's wrapped into the town's comprehensive plan, actually.
Yeah,
as
I
an
was wondering
appendix.
about
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And does it identify specific areas / parcels in the town?
It
You
had-
know?
It identified parcels where there was active agriculture, and identified parcels where there were prime soils. But beyond that, I don't think it necessarily recommended a strategy for maintaining those parcels as farmland.
Yeah, you'd basically have to buy the rights to it for development rights to the land to retain it as farmland, I would assume. The town would have to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's one possibility.
Yeah, I'm unaware that the town has undertaken that yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay. Impact on aesthetic resources, number 9. We're almost halfway through. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource. I've indicated yes, there is an impact to aesthetic resources. So A, the proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. So we've indicated no or small impact here, and the key is there that we don't have a designated local scenic or aesthetic resource, right, or even federal or state. So there is an impact, but we don't have a designated resource. B, the proposed action may result in the obstruction, elimination, or significant screening of one or more officially designated scenic views. I've indicated no or small impact. The proposed action may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points, either seasonally or year-round. I've indicated no or small impact. D, the situation or activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is 1, routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work, and recreation or tourism-based activities, both of which I've indicated as no or small impact.
And I would challenge that, Wes, based on feedback we've had from the public. I'd like to discuss D and E a little bit more. I think that is one of the prime objections to the project. I know we've heard from at least one resident that people actually stop on the roadway to enjoy the view of the property, and certainly the residents that surround the property enjoy the view there. So I'd like to discuss that a little bit further. Maybe move that to moderate.
Okay. So I'm just looking at the online workbook here for those questions, D and E. And if you'll entertain me here while I read a little bit. When a proposed project is part of or visible from a scenic aesthetic resource, it will be viewed by many different people in different circumstances. The question explores whether the project site is in a location that will be viewed on a daily and constant basis by members of the community, and or if it is within a location that also has an important role in recreation or tourism economy of the area. Both are important, and changes to scenic and aesthetic resources may have adverse impacts on both the quality of life of residents and broader economic impacts. So, under analysis, how often will members of the community view the project site? Is the project site in or viewed from a scenic or aesthetic resource that is important to recreation in the area or to tourism? And if so, how? And how will the project site change the use or perception about that scenic resource? Will there be an impact if the project site is not visible from or within a scenic or aesthetic resource? It will not have any related impacts. Check no or small impact may occur. Some examples of small projects that might fall into this category are the following. The project site is visible from minor roads used by a limited number of local residents only and is not part of a recreation or tourism-related activity. A limited portion of the project site is visible, but because it is not in sharp contrast to the scenic resource or surrounding land uses, there will be no diminishment of the designated resource. For moderate to large impact, some examples of moderate to large impacts would include the project site is visible from major roads and highly traveled routes used by many residents and visitors. The project site is visible from, is in, or obstructs a scenic resource that plays a key role as part of a recreational or tourist asset of the community. And the project site is visible, and because it is in sharp contrast to the scenic resource and surrounding land uses, will significantly reduce enjoyment and appreciation of the scenic resource.
My opinion is it fits within the small impact definition that's there. I don't see how that is
And see, I would agree with DII. I would say small, recreation or tourism, but certainly DI, routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work, I would say is moderate to large.
It says in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action. I mean, people are commuting by, they're not stopping and enjoying the scenery from a park or a pullover or something like that this property.
That's why I say I as routine travel to and from work is probably moderate, because a lot of people go by that on the road, but certainly there's no recreation or tourism-based activities.
But doesn't it have to be, according to what Wes read, some type of a major highway? Which it isn't.
Not a secondary.
Yeah.
Not a major highway.
Yeah, major roads and highly traveled routes used by many residents and visitors. I don't see how it rises to that, honestly.
Well, I disagree, but I guess, bow to the wishes of the board, so.
Well, there's also other opportunities to talk about this particular topic. This won't be the only one, right? When we talk about community character and consistency with community plans.
Okay.
So, I guess at this point, we'll leave both of those as our notice moderate. Notice moderate.
No to small.
No.
No or small.
No or small. Okay. So E, the proposed action may cause diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of the designated aesthetic resource. So I've got notice note a small impact here as well, because we don't have something, it's not designated. While it is locally significant, while people do recognize that, you know, it's a pretty area and there is value to that, we don't have anything officially kind of designating it. There are similar projects visible within the following distance of the proposed project. Up to a half a mile to 3 miles, 3 to 5 miles, and five and up. Similar projects include those of the same use, but also of similar scale, context, dimension, density, design, or location. So how many land uses are similar to the proposed project? How far away are those similar projects? And how are the land uses similar? If there are no other similar users, if there are no other similar users, will the
Uses.
proposed use be in sharp contrast to the overall landscape? So a small impact could be considered the project is fully or partially visible, but there are other land uses of similar scale, design, density, dimension, or other location, both nearby and far away, so that the context of the scenic resource does not change. Moderate to large might include the project is visible, but there are none or very few other land uses of similar scale, design, density, dimension, or location nearby, so that the context of the scenic resource changes and the proposed activity will be in sharp contrast to the existing resources.
What would the closest subdivision be then? Like up on Shire or was it Bram something?
Bramwell Park.
Yeah, Bramwell Park.
I-
Are they the
I-
closest?
This isn't like either of those, because these are these are houses built along the road. There's no entry drive, separate dedicated roadway like Bramwell Park or Shire Lane.
It is a subdivision, though.
Well, yes, you're subdividing land, but
Frontage lots.
they're frontage lots, right? Thank you. Scott.
I've got up on the screen an aerial that kind of shows the parcel layout here. So here's the existing project parcel, right? And then you've got, I don't know the name of this subdivision down here off of Strong and
The higher
Dryer
lot
Road,
Hills, I think.
right? And then you've got some residential development just to the north, which are frontage lots, as you described, right? And some frontage lots also along Strong Road.
Right, I mean, Strong Road, all it is frontage lots with the exception of one or two
Yep.
Okay.
special dedicated roads, so most are private drives, except when you get up to 251 or off a Dryer.
So I've got no or small impact there. If you're in agreement
think
with that, we
that's-
can move on.
Appropriate.
Okay.
Move on.
All right. You can switch.
Well, and what about the existing houses on the north side of Taylor Road?
I can't hear you.
Right, those are.
That's the same type of, right, frontage lots, yeah.
Consistent with that,
Yes. I think that's what, one of the things Wes pointed out, yeah.
Yep. Okay, number 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. We don't have any documentation indicating that there are potentially archaeological resources on or within or in immediate proximity to the project parcel. Or same with historic, so we've indicated no.
Yep.
Number 11, impact on open space and recreation. The proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or a reduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. Vindicated, yes, the proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or reduction of an open space resource. A, the proposed action may result in an impairment of natural functions or ecosystem services provided by an undeveloped area, including but not limited to stormwater storage, nutrient cycling, and wildlife habitat. I've indicated no or small impact. B, the proposed action may result in the loss of a current or future recreational resource. I've indicated no or small impact. C, the proposed action may eliminate open space or recreational resource in an area with few such resources. No or small impact. D, the proposed action may result in a loss of an area now used informally by the community as an open space resource. No or small impact. Number 12, impact on critical environmental areas. The proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area. We've indicated no, as there are no state-recognized critical environmental areas in the town of Victor.
Wes, could I ask a question on the prior one? The impact on open space and recreation, it says as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. Do we have a municipal open space plan?
Yeah, we have an open space index that's a component of the town's natural resources inventory from 2014, I think is the date.
And is this site located or identified in that?
It's identified as an open, it's not like a specific, we have a map. I wonder if I can pull up that map. Probably won't be able to find it in a timely fashion.
It's okay, we have to come back for the hydrogeologist guy.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you want to park that one, that's okay. I was just
Let's
curious.
do that. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
That's fine. Impact on transportation. The proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation systems. I've indicated no.
So that's why I don't disagree with that characterization. It might be worth going through the 4 or 5 sub-bullets just so that the public can understand what constitutes that.
I think that's a fine idea. Al. Let's do that. So, A, the projected traffic increase may exceed capacity of the existing road network. So I would probably presume that there would be no or small impact that the project would have in that regard. B, the proposed action may result in the construction of paved parking area for 500 or more vehicles. There would be no impact in that regard. C, the proposed action will degrade existing transit access. I'd say no. The proposed action will degrade existing pedestrian or bicycle accommodations. I would say no. E, the proposed action may alter the present pattern of movement of people or goods, and I would say no.
So I'd agree with that no assessment for
Okay.
the top header.
Okay.
Agreed.
But thanks for reading those through.
Number 14, impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy. Well, yes, the project will result in the increase in use of energy, right? There's probably going to be some utilities that are extended in terms of electric, so there will be an increase in energy use. A, the proposed action will require a new or an upgrade to an existing substation. I've got no or small impact. B, the proposed action will require the creation or extension of an energy transmission or supply system to serve more than 50 single or two-family residences or to serve a commercial or industrial use. I've indicated no or small impact. C, the proposed action may utilize more than 2,500 megawatt hours per year of electricity. No or small impact. The proposed action may involve heating and or cooling of more than 100,000 square feet of building area when completed. No or small impact. Okay, impact on noise, odor, and light. The proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting. Yes. The proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulation. I've indicated no or small impact here. While we do recognize that the noise created during construction would likely have an impact on the neighborhood after the completion of construction, it would be anticipated that the noise levels would return to what the ambient levels are today. B, the proposed action may result in blasting within 1,500 feet of any residence, hospital, school, licensed daycare center, or nursing home. No impact in that regard. The proposed action may result in routine odors for more than 1 hour per day, no impact in that regard. The proposed action may result in light shining onto adjoining properties. I've indicated no or small impact in that regard. And the proposed action may result in lighting, creating sky glow brighter than existing area conditions, no or small impact. Number 16, impact on human health. The proposed action may have an impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contaminants. I've indicated no in that regard. Now we're going to get to the hard stuff. Question number 17, consistency with community plans. The proposed action is not consistent with the adopted land use plans. So this is a difficult question to answer because there are instances of even though I've indicated, yes, this is the proposed action is not consistent with the plan, there are elements that are consistent with the plan. So I think it warrants, kind of like we did with transportation or traffic, we should go through these items. And there's a lot of information to go through with the town's comprehensive plan and the natural resource inventory. And so we'll start with paragraph A here. The proposed action's land use components may be different from or in sharp contrast to current surrounding land use patterns. I've indicated no or small impact may occur. And this is all up for discussion, so we'll get through these. B, the proposed action will cause permanent population of the city, town, or village in which the project is located to grow by more than 5%. I think it's a fairly safe bet that's no impact in that regard. C, the proposed action is inconsistent with local land use plans in zoning or zoning regulations. I've got no or small impact. D, the proposed action is inconsistent with any county plans or other regional land use plans. No or small impact. E, the proposed action may cause a change in the density of development that is not supported by existing infrastructure or is distant from existing infrastructure. I've got no or small impact. F, the proposed action is located in an area characterized by low-density development that will require new or expanded public infrastructure. No or small impact. The proposed action may induce secondary development impacts. For example, residential or commercial development not included in the proposed action. No or small impact. So there's a number of items that we might want to think about here. So the concept level future land use map that's in the comprehensive plan on page 816, it identifies the area of town within which this project is located as an area where the town could consider increasing residential density from least dense to a medium density. So for example, 0.33 units per acre to half a unit per acre. And the current proposal does not reflect that potential in density change, and it adheres to the maximum density currently permitted within residential A overlay district at 0.33 units per acre. So as you know, we've had other projects come before the planning board and ultimately the town board for a change in the zoning density map, right? That did follow the theory of that concept level future land use density change map. Also, chapter 2 in the comprehensive plan, which is natural and cultural resources, has the following goals. These aren't all, this isn't an exhaustive list, but we have respect and protect the natural topography. Preserve or restore hubs and links across the landscape that anchor and connect green infrastructure networks and provide an origin or destination for wildlife and ecological processes moving to or through the network. Integrate a green infrastructure conservation and planning approach into Victor's long-term planning and development review process, and provide an interconnected network of green space that conserves natural ecosystem values and functions and provides associated benefits to human populations. So one of the things that I'm feeling this particular proposal does to address some of those goals is it does provide that lineage along the stream and that conservation easement and preserves some of the forest area to the rear of the property and focuses the development in the open meadow. So there is some preservation of green infrastructure there in that regard. Is the project respecting and protecting the natural topography? I'll leave that for the planning board to decide. You know, I think there are efforts in the grading plan to maintain some of that rolling topography, even though there would be the construction of these residential homes. And then under Chapter 4 in the comprehensive plan, growth management and community character, some of those goals include ensure that all elements of Victor's community character valued by residents are preserved, adopt a conservation-based approach that addresses the ecological and social impacts of sprawl and the accelerated consumption and fragmentation of agricultural and open land, and foster a regional landscape scale approach to open space preservation that takes into account how open space on any particular parcel contributes to the open space needs of the town as a whole. So I guess I offer some of that to you, maybe looking for a little bit of your feedback in terms of your feelings on how this proposal may be consistent with the comprehensive plan, or if you find that there are elements that are inconsistent with the comprehensive plan or some of those goals. And again, if don't want to necessarily put you on the spot, if you want to take some time to think about that and email town staff or email me your thoughts for discussion at the next meeting, we can do that too.
I remember Wes asking about whether or not this was in the area that was being considered for increased density, I guess, from 3 to 2 acres per parcel, and I thought the conclusion was it was not in that area. But it is north of Dalton Hill Road, which there are some areas that did change.
Yeah, I can bring up that map.
Yeah, I was looking for, I couldn't find it, so while you were talking.
So Wes, it was your point that when we took a look at one of those other projects, we were able to look at the comprehensive plan and that section and a recommendation for different density, and then we went along with that. But that was an increase in density. Here we're talking about a decrease in density, right?
We're talking about the least dense.
Yeah, currently now, this parcel is zoned as, it has the least permitted density out of all of the density designations. And this map that I was referring to identifies the potential or the concept of increasing the density.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, in this area. And so I was going to try to.
I thought it was the other way. I guess if I've learned anything in the public comment, I think it should be considered in the other direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're holding the developer to, is the least dense
Right.
development. That's what he's proposed. It's not like he's proposing anything more dense than that, so.
Right, so until that's converted to zoning, we have to work with what we have to.
Right. Yeah. Now, if, as with, what's the parcel where the horse farm is?
Bluemont.
Bluemont, yeah. Now, they propose to go to a denser development on Strong Road and exchange it for a less dense development at Bluemont. And we, I guess, opted not to change that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a case where it was a targeted area, if you will, of increased density within the town because there's sewer and water service being brought into that subdivision. Here, there's no water, there's no sewer, so it makes sense to retain what we're
Right.
entertaining here, I guess, by the developer. So,
Yeah, I guess when Wes was first speaking, I thought there was some proposal for this area in Victor to have lower density than it currently has.
Yeah, and I do recall asking this question like, over a year ago, and I thought the answer was that it wasn't one of those areas with the potential to increase the density, but,
I like Wes's suggestion that we revisit this at the next meeting. I'd like to take another look at the comprehensive plan, too.
that's fine. We're not ending the discussion on any of these tonight, so,
With respect to item 17 and letter G, the water main that was proposed that has now been removed.
I can't hear you, Scott, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. With respect to item 17G, the proposed action may induce secondary development. I think when the water main was proposed, that could have been true, but individual wells, I think, pretty much preclude anything happening in that regard.
right, I agree with that.
Yeah,
But
agree.
we normally, although the firefighting is obviously a challenge according to the engineer, when you bring in a water main, you can induce growth pretty easily.
Suzie, could you switch me on here? So here's a copy of the map, the concept level future land use, potential density changes. This is the map that's in the town's comprehensive plan. And again, it's concept level only, right? It's not mandating that something happen, but we've got these different categories here. We've got commercial, high intensity, neighborhood density, residential, medium density residential, rural conservation density in these colors, yellow, light yellow, and beige. So these proposed changes to a greater density, they're kind of characterized by this dark red, medium red, and light pink. And it shows some cross-hatching in there. So that's identifying areas that are least dense going to a higher density, right? So that includes, for example, is it Stonebrook subdivision? Is that the name of it? That was over in this part of the town. So that's where I think the density change, the town board actually changed the density from half a unit per acre to 1 unit per acre, if I'm
They doubled the density.
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was identified in this brighter red category. So if we go on to the other side of town, we've got Taylor Road right here, right? And you can see that, I'll zoom in here and make sure that is Taylor Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it
right.
is. So that's also in that same red category where conceptually, maybe the town could consider, if they wanted to, to increase the density there.
And now, that's not, just not to alarm everybody out there, but this is not actual zoning regulations, I guess. It's proposed.
Right, but I think what's important, right, is we're trying to tie it back to the comprehensive plan, which indicated this should be considered for increased density.
True.
Yeah. Yep, and right, and so there are other areas of the town where it was considered that the density would be decreased, right? If you're going to increase, the theory was they wanted to maintain a build-out level of a certain population or a certain number of residential units. So if you're increasing the density in some areas, well, you've got to decrease the density in other areas. And those you'll find with regard, if you look at the blue categories here, dark blue, so it's, medium density to rural density. So this light blue down here on 444 and out here on Boughton Hill Road, and maybe is that Malone, maybe? Those areas were considered conceptually to decrease in density. And this was all about transferring development rights, about sending units from the rural countryside and having them located closer to where community infrastructure is, or where where density and the town is similar, or they're, I don't know. I can't remember exactly how it was articulated, but so we've got those areas as sending districts. Also on the north side of town, you've got some sending districts here as well off of Main Main Street Fishers, and Benson Road here as well. So, yeah. So that's just one small point in the comprehensive plan to maybe consider.
So the bottom line is with this one, we're not advocating, or the developer's not requesting an increase in density here. It's the least dense that they can be, so that certainly goes to whatever we consider with this application.
Yep.
Okay. Like I said, we can revisit this. It's getting a little late this evening, but I do want to help make sure we can
I'm just getting started.
through this thing. You got another 18 on this one, Wes? Is that it?
Number 18, consistency with community character. The proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character. This is another one, right? I've indicated yes, and probably more so just to spur some conversation here. A, the proposed action may replace or eliminate existing facilities, structures, or areas of a historic importance to the community. I've got no or small impact. B, the proposed action may create a demand for additional community services, for example, schools, police, fire. I've indicated no or small impact. The proposed action may displace affordable or low-income housing in an area where there is a shortage of such housing. I've got no or small impact. And D, the proposed action may interfere with the use or enjoyment of officially recognized or designated public resources. I've got no or small impact. E, the proposed action is inconsistent with the predominant architectural scale and character. I've got no or small impact. And F, the action is inconsistent with the character of the existing natural landscape.
Now, 2 comments, if I could.
Yes, sir.
The first for A. We've heard from Babette several times about the existing house and the lack of apparent maintenance anyways. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, what the plans are. It hasn't come up much to my knowledge, so maybe explore that a little more. And then E, the houses along Taylor Road and Strong Road, the existing homes, have been built over a wide number of years, and just by the fact that the proposed homes will all be built in 23, 24, they're going to, while look different, be probably similar in their architectural theme, if you will. So I would suggest that's probably more moderate or smoderate, whatever we want to call it these days. That's going down in the books, that one. So. But I think they'll probably look different in character from the existing homes. So I'd like to talk about that a little more, or get more
So
discussion.
are you suggesting that if they were built over 15 or 20 years, and they were all different architecturally or similar architecturally to the existing homes, that would be no or small impact?
I don't understand, I'm sorry.
Well, you made the comment that for E, the proposed action is inconsistent with the predominant architectural scale and character. So scale, I could say, there's some pretty big houses
Sure,
across
no,
the road.
I'm going with the character.
And so the character is, it's a different style because it's a different era of construction. Would it be less of an impact if they were the same architectural style as what's across the road?
Well, as you come down Strong Road heading south, you've got a barn that was converted to a home next to a 100-year-old house. And if you go up Taylor Road, you've got homes that have been built over the course of 50 years. So just by virtue of the era in which these homes were built, they're going to look different than homes that are built within the course of 2 years. So the character, I think, is going to be different from the new homes compared to the existing.
Okay. Again, if they look that different, is that something that's, you think is of large impact?
I think it's bigger than smaller, no, yes.
Okay. I disagree, but I understand that there will be a character. I mean, you could have 10 different types of houses there. They don't have to all be the same design. And I think Doug even, he doesn't have any control over what the architectural style is that's going to go in there. Then they may end up being similar if they're all the same builder and the same builder gets the contract to with set numbers of layouts, but
So are we going to is this going to be opened up then to different builders, or is one builder going to develop the site? Do we know that? Are we to that point yet?
Right now, it's likely to be one builder.
I'm sorry?
Right now, it's likely to be one builder. If this approval process takes much longer, it could end up being more than one builder. I just, I don't want to answer that.
Okay.
Yes or no.
okay, well,
But the architectural style is what it is. I mean,
it's whatever somebody wants to build, I guess is my
Yeah.
point.
Sure. I don't see any log cabins going up or barns being
but I don't,
converted.
you see a lot of homes go up to try to reflect 50 years ago or
Sure.
whatever. So, and, going back to the original statement is, can you really even see the houses? Again, you might see parts of 3 of them. Or you might see down a driveway and, take a glimpse.
Sure.
I'm talking about from Taylor Road now, but, so I don't know how that could be a big impact, just my opinion.
I think
Okay.
another component to that is landscaping. When these sites start out, they're pretty raw, and once they're vegetated, like my neighborhood now is 30-plus years old, and it's really a completely different neighborhood than when I first moved in.
That's very true.
So I
Right,
think
what,
mitigation factor, and the homes across the street there are already enjoying that mature landscaping. So I think that should be considered.
yeah, Scott is probably articulating something that I'm somewhat frustrated with. Here we've got open land. There's no trees on it where we're building. And so we can't be like across the road where they've got mature trees. All we can do, as Scott says, is try to reflect what's across the road by building trees, by putting in mounds and things of that nature, which are part 3 discussions. But, it's almost like, if this thing was wooded, the public would be concerned about taking down woods. And usually that's more of an impact than building on farmland. But maybe I'm just being a little bit frustrated now, but my point is, we can only do with what we have out there, and that's an open field, and we can only mitigate with the tools we have, and those tools are grading and landscaping, and we've tried to do that. So that's my point. Thank you.
Any other comments on 18? All right, well, clearly we're not complete with this. Wes, any other things we need to follow up on with this? Certainly, there's at least a couple of sections that we need to revisit.
Yeah, so this was good to go through this straw document here, and what we'll have prepared for the next meeting is kind of a final draft or a final version that you could potentially act on, right, for seeker. We'll draft, maybe a draft determination of significance and provide the substance, additional details that you're looking for with this draft here.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Wes.
Thanks, Wes, for going through all that. Thank you all for your patience. We have one more other item this evening, and that's Eastview Mall number 20 charging stations. Whereas in a letter dated January 30th, Livingston Energy Group requested a 90-day extension of time for application titled Eastview Mall number 30 charging station. Is that, it says 20, that says 30, is that a?
Oh, type
20? 20, okay. Number 20 charging station, therefore be it resolved that the Town of Victor Planning Board grants the first 90-day extension of time for the Eastview Mall number 20 charging station. I don't know, Wes, if we have to have any background of the board or not. I believe they had to work on Kim establishing transformer in the right place or something.
They needed
Sorry, you should. I know you're tired.
They needed a stamped site plan, I believe. That's
Okay.
what we're trying to get them to submit.
All right.
And it's been,
Survey and all that,
it's
right?
been a difficult job for Lisa to do that.
Okay.
She's trying, but we're still waiting for that, so Wes and Labella can sign off on it.
Okay.
Their previous site plan lacked sufficient engineering detail.
That's a subject near and dear to Scott's heart. So, I have a resolution for extension. Do I hear a motion to approve that?
I'll move.
I'll
I hear
second.
Ernie moved, Al seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried 5-0. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Joe moves, I heard somebody over there.
Second.
Second, Scott, all in favor? Aye. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Go hug your wife or husband or whatever.